I'll take my own question. Let me just respond to something that he said.
Yes.
He talked about Nigeria exporting just one resource. I think what has accounted for that is the fact that the federal government, through a decree in the past, appropriated all natural resources under the soil to itself. So if you have a structure where the federal government owns everything you bring out from your soil, then there is no motivation for the states to bring out the natural resources in their environment. Because if you use your money to bring it out, at best, probably they pay you 13% derivation. Meanwhile, you had spent 100% of your money doing that. So there is bitumen in those states. The government there is not going to be motivated to bring it out. There are solid minerals all over the north. The governments there are not going to be motivated to bring it out. So just to comment on that valid point he has raised.
Okay. We've since been joined by Mr. Taufik Gani, who's PRO of PDP Lagos. Good morning, Mr. Gani.
Good morning.
I am sure while you were waiting to join us, you're listening to what we were talking about the 2012 budget and all the mathematics we've been told has been implemented 56%, it's been implemented 40%, and now we're actually looking at the budget itself. Forget the implementation of it. I mean, how focused is the budget to developing Nigeria? That is a question we're looking at. What are your thoughts on that to start with?
Well, I would prefer to, indeed you have even introduced me as a public secretary of a PDP. So I would prefer to discuss it in a manner that people will want to see the implementation. They are more interested in the implementation rather than the figures. And in that light, I would say that as a politician, you always want a situation where you have reasons to be so comfortable as to say that the next elections you will win. And I think that drives me to say that this budget is being implemented. It's being implemented to the extent that we just have about 2.5 months or 3 months thereabouts of its life. And then you don't expect more than 30% of its implementation. And indeed, even the coordinating minister for the economy, Mrs. Okonjo-Iweala, has come out to say that they have actually attained 38% of its implementation. And that is encouraging enough. Well, you see, because of the politics and everything, everybody, the opposition, they are very keen on winning the next election, so they will do all possible to run down the government. I'm so happy that here I heard that's very germane issue of insecurity. We should reach a situation, we should reach a stage that the legislature will not see itself as opposition to the executive. I remember during the Gulf War, a budget was sent to the U.S. Congress. The U.S. Congress actually multiplied what was given to it, and then they encouraged George Bush to go to the war, and then he was able to conquer. We have a very serious problem now, and it is only somebody who is very diabolical that will say that this is not a weighty issue that can distract anybody, even if you are going to bring Obama to Nigeria.
So are you implying that we are at war?
We are not at war, but we are serious. I think the definition of war should go beyond country against country. What we are facing is seriously, well, I would say is war, because some group of persons have made up their mind to say that President Goodluck Jonathan will not serve in peace. And they are being sponsored not only by people around their areas, but we suspect seriously that people who are even outside that area are also supporting them, just in the name of we must win 2015. And this is not fair to Nigerians. And this is why I say I would rather discuss it in a manner that the average Nigerian, the ordinary Nigerian, will want to say that, okay, yes, it is true, the budget is working, the budget is not working. Now, as we talk, there is no man in the agri sector that will tell you that the budget is not working, because we have to give thanks to the Minister for Agri, Mr. Akinwumi. He has actually made sure that the basic thing in agriculture, especially farming, which is the fertilizer, gets to the man who needs it. You don't have middleman again. And then they have loans, soft loans. They are encouraging the promotion of agriculture. And again, Nigerians will also be happy that at least they don't queue any longer to get fuel The economy is moving, is evolving, but I think the problem now is that Nigerians should begin to demand that anybody who speaks must speak in good faith. He must not see himself as a card-carrying member of a party and as a result run down the government of Nigeria.
So you as a member of PDP, do you want to say that poverty is reducing in Nigeria and that obviously a lot more people are employed now? Well, because when you say economy is growing, it implies that people are getting more jobs and poverty is reducing.
Well, if we use the index of employment, I would say that how many does even the federal government employ? You see that may not be too good.
No, it's more the creation of jobs rather than employment by the government.
Yes, the creation of job by the federal government. The federal government has tried. The federal government will not come and tell you that he has done 100%. He will tell you that yes, they are doing what should be done in an economy such as Nigeria has. We all know that we are depending on fuel. We also know that agriculture is now evolving to the stage that a Nigerian will also be happy to invest in agriculture in Nigeria. We also know that now, if you look well, you will agree that the power sector we are also evolving. Now, the template is there. For every sector of the economy, the template is there. And like I tell you, the problem remains that all other opportunities are not encouraged because the legislature, to the best of my own appreciation, still sees himself as opponent of the executive. The legislature can also so moto bring up policies to encourage the executive. You understand? And unfortunately, in the attempt, the PDP controlled National Assembly, in the attempt to allow dissenting views, dissenting opinions, which I also support. You see, they allow inflammatory statements, they allow criticisms that are not even constructive to go on at the level of the Alo chamber.
I'm tempted to take you up on that, but I think we'll leave that because we are more interested in the economy and the budget. Well. So let's come back to Alhaji Lehman. In terms of the growth of Nigeria, the budget at the moment, as said by Mr. Luo here earlier, it looks as if this budget is not going to be able to do that. What do you think we should be looking at in terms of the future, the budget?
You see, at the risk of repeating, a country ought to sit down in the first place. I'm talking about His Excellency's administration right now, Jonathan Goodluck, which is the PDP administration. The winning a political election is one thing. Moving the economy forward is not the province of politicians. It's the preoccupation of experts who had seen other countries that had gone through the same process. Like Lee Kuan Yew had said, there's nothing new under the sun, like the book of Ecclesiastes is saying. What Nigeria is facing today as an oil-producing state is a different ball game, and that's why I bear the sympathy of my colleague. Nigeria is an oil-producing state, and a lot of you are not even aware that what is going on in Borno State is also, Borno State is a huge oil-producing state with about 10 billion reserves there, which is being poached through other countries if you don't have peace and stability in your place. So Nigeria now has oil and it's refining. Chad has oil and is refining. And it's the same oil belt and where you have the crisis here and there. The fear was that, okay, is it geopolitics that is playing itself out? Because the Nigerese decided to give it to the Russians, the Chinese. And here in Chad, you have ESO World Bank project going on there. All crude oil being piped direct to the port of Kribe in Cameroon. You have about 1,000 huge pipeline. And nobody is asking questions whether or not what is going on in Borno State, like my colleague is saying, is a geopolitics that is going on. It's normally the staple of all this people gunning after this essential commodity. Without this commodity, industrial economies stagnate. So what is going on in Bakassi, you may say, oh my God, what is going on also in the Akwa Ibom, what is going on in the Nigerians? Nigerians traditionally are not warmongers. We've been interacting, churches are even shocked. Why are we being bombed? Mosques are being, why are we being, the president is saying, look, this thing is going beyond me. So I think Nigerians ought to have sympathy to him. Let's say, can we help you to come out of these difficulties?
So what do we need to do?
What do we need to do? Yeah, what we need to do is this. When you have an economy this size, And everybody is now playing the ball game of taking the crude oil and moving without adding value. Questions will be asked. Now, development economics are saying, Ricardo, improve your economy. Hillary Clinton came, the Secretary of State. He said, well, I'm going to develop, we're going to increase crude oil production. Why didn't she say we need to come back and help Nigeria, the biocells, for instance, to have on board working refineries? It just takes about 2 years for you to have an investment in refinery.
And how much do you have?
Is that add value? Anyway, don't do that.
Now, but do you think that will be the responsibility of the likes of?
Yeah, because they are equity owners for crying out loud. So they have a commitment here in this country. If this country works, America, Britain, and France will work. And that's why you see once in a while when there is huge insecurity, you have the premium on insurance, you have the cost of the crude at New York Stock Exchange being affected because Nigeria provides almost the best quality product, and you're not adding value. The economic theory is basically this: which is the commodity that you have the highest comparative advantage, and then you maximize the opportunities. We are not into shipping of oil. We are not into local content. 95% of this important commodity is being controlled by exogenous interests. And you say you want to develop. How do you want to develop? When each time you're spending $1,500 buying this with the subsidy, with the Farouk Lawan and all these other things happening, and there's no way you are exporting and adding value. How do you develop then?
Okay, maybe I should ask Mr. Luo then. Do you think that what Alhaji Lehman is saying, do you think that this should be the responsibility of others rather than our government?
No, I didn't say others, please. What I'm saying is that they have... No, that was not what I was saying.
Okay. They are an interested party.
They are critical stakeholders, yes. Okay. What places like Iran or Saudi Arabia had done with the Aramco was they called the US, they said, look, we don't want a war in Saudi Arabia and you are interested in oil. And as far back as 1930, please come, let's work in synergy. You have the technology, you have the manpower, you have the money. We have the crude oil, about 260 billion barrels. We're sitting down, we're not going to eat it. You need it. But we need infrastructure. This is not being done in the country. Everybody is bound. America is bound. At the end of the day, Niger Delta crisis, Boko Haram crisis, they will take their investment elsewhere. And right now they are going to the high seas. Before you do it, they will develop technology where they will just bypass Nigeria. Nothing you can do.
They will still need our oil, though. And in needing our oil, shouldn't it be our responsibility to make sure we put our house in order and we get our refineries to work? As Mr. Gani said, to make sure that our agriculture is working for us.
No. We have a problem with agriculture already. With the insecurity problem, I am not sure it will not affect agriculture. By the end of the year, we begin to see the numbers. I commend the minister for the efforts he's making, but these are structural issues. I think a lot of the time we deal with the symptoms instead of looking at the fundamental structure that has created those symptoms. I think that's the problem of the Nigerian economy. On one hand, the man on the street is not interested in all these numbers. You have done 10% performance, you have done 30% performance. He's not interested. That is on one hand. On the other hand, it's not good for government. For one arm of government to be saying this is what we have done, and another arm is bringing another data. Government is one, and any data that comes for government must be one. We used to have a team before, the Economic Intelligence Team, headed by late Professor Aluko. Dr. Ayagi took over from him when he left. That is the team under Abacha that was giving us the figures for economic performance and other micro indices by way of intelligence gathering. That is, on one hand, there must be uniformity in what the government presents to the Nigerian people. Now, the second issue is that the common man on the street is not interested in all these numbers. What he's interested in is whether he can get job. People who don't have jobs can get job. Whether there can be roads for him and there can be infrastructure. We have an economy that we claim is growing at 7% and is not creating jobs. You know why? Because a lot of money is being released, and at the end of the day, these monies end up back in the hand of the government. So the fiscal policy needs adjustment. The monetary policies, we must begin to correct them. The federal government is borrowing money from the bond market today at about 16-17%. That's the yield. If federal government is borrowing at 16-17%, the private sector is finished, because that would be the benchmark that all the other lenders will borrow money to will lend money to the private sector. If the private sector cannot get funding, they cannot create employment. Government cannot employ. I listen to what my colleague said. Government cannot create this employment. We must agree that fundamentally. So if we say it's the private sector that will create that employment, is money getting to the system in a way that it will get to the private sector? That is not happening. Banks are getting all the money today, and they are using it to buy treasury bills, they are using it to buy government bonds. These are risk-free instruments.
So if we look at specific things that the government of Nigeria can do today to translate the what sounds like fantastic indices that
we must begin to bring the monetary policy rate down. At 12% is not sustainable. It's been 12% since October last year. We must begin to trend it downwards such that within the next 6 months we should be approaching about 7%. Because it is a risk-free rate, and it is a rate that you don't need to do anything. You don't need to go through the trouble of setting up a factory and employing people. You just put your money with the government and you go to sleep. Then you come back in 90 days, you have made money. That's what the banks are doing, and that's why money is not getting to the economy. And that's why the manufacturers and all those that can employ people cannot employ. So that rate must begin to come down.
Okay.
Number two, we must begin to devolve resources to states and begin to reduce the budget from that almost 80% recurrent to something in the region of 60 or 62.
Okay. Let me take you back to something you said earlier, that this budget implementation only started in April. So late passage of the budget also has a lot to do with what we're talking about now. What is the reason for our budget being passed relatively late, almost on a yearly basis?
Yeah, I think it has to do with the executive and the parliament, really. What is important at this time is that even when this budget started in April, the budget of 2011 was running till March. So there is really no gap. It is end of March that the budget of 2011 stopped, that the budget of 2012 started. But personally, I think we should look at our fiscal calendar so that we don't run into all these budgetary challenges. Let us make our budgets to start in October. Probably October 1, which is our independence. The president goes to the parliament to present the budget to the parliament on October 1. And he may even give his independence speech at that parliament. What that means is that at the beginning of a government and at the end of a government, you are not going to have this problem of ownership of budget, because a president passes a budget in his last year, and that budget is going to end in December. A new government is sworn in May. That government is expected to implement a budget that he knew nothing about. So let us have our fiscal year starting on October 1, so that a new government comes in May, they spend June, July to settle down and prepare the budget. August, September, the parliament passes it. By October 1, we are doing it. So at the tail end of the government, we will be okay. At the beginning of the government, we will be okay, and that transition can be smooth.
Okay.
That is my suggestion.
Okay, well, we will have to begin to round up now. So should we start with Mr. Taufik Gani? What will be your final word in terms of the budget that we have had, the implementation of it, and what will be your final word on all of this?
I like that the issue has come up, and it is one of the things the PDP encourages, especially so that we can have good governance. Opposition is okay in democracy, but we should not take it too far. We should not play politics with it. I also want to say that we are happy now that we have a new arrangement in the presidency, and I can assure you that, especially some of the things discussed here by Mr. Olu and Mr. Gatima Lima, if I get a copy, I will let reach the presidency, especially through the new SSA to the president on media, on public affairs, Dr. Okukwe. He will definitely get it, let it get to the president. And I think the feedback theory is what the PDP is using now. So that at the end of the day, we don't talk for nothing. We talk and then we try and see how we can make changes.
Thank you very much.
Well, my fundamental submission is what my colleague has said, that even with 100% budget implementation, you've still a drop in the ocean. We need to have a complete paradigm shift, a strategic orientation of adding value to the resources that we have, so that instead of the pittance that we are getting, be the detonation, we'll begin to now look at it and see how we can improve on productivity, how we can export value-added products, whether it's agriculture, whether it is oil and gas, whatever they did. But most importantly, this can only happen in a society where there's cohesion and peace and quiet.
Okay. Mr. Luo.
I think for me, the debate on the budget has been very interesting. I think it's welcome, but we should now begin to move away from debates on budget to debates on the structural problems that is making budgets to be unimplemented. And these structural problems can be addressed when we begin to ask questions. How did we get to a point where we are running government with 80%? We must deal with it. We must get to a point where we say, what is government even going into at the federal level? Is government going into things that ordinarily it should not go into? And we begin to leave those things for the private sector. So those fundamentally will address the problem, and that's what Nigerians want to hear.
Thank you very much. We've been looking at the 2012 budget and how far it's been implemented, and as well as what we should actually be looking at to put into budgets of the future to make sure that they give the kind of results which Nigeria and Nigerians expect. And we were chatting with Alhaji Galtima Liman, who is a policy analyst, Mr. Wale Oluwo, who is an investment analyst, as well as Mr. Taufik Gani, who is PRO PDP Lagos. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming to share this time with us. Sunrise will return with yet another interesting topic in just a moment.